The day was going to be a busy one. In the morning, there was an important business meeting, then a visit to the site, and right after noon there were meetings in the head office. Ever since Veronica's uncle gave Maxim a responsible position, his work had become much more demanding. But he did not have to complain about his busy schedule. Such a workload was even to his liking. He was always full of ambition, never stopped at what he had achieved, planning to go even higher soon. He got ready quickly, and even had time for a cup of coffee. Veronica was still asleep, with her hand under her cheek, curled up in a ball. Maxim left a velvet box tied with a red ribbon on the nightstand, touched her soft hair with his lips. Today was her birthday, and this was just one of the surprises awaiting his bride. After looking at himself meticulously in the mirror and convincing himself that he looked good, he adjusted his tie, smoothed his tar-black hair, grabbed his keys, and proceeded to the stairwell. At the same second, an attractive young girl came out of the apartment next door. The elevator doors opened, and Maxim let his neighbor go ahead with her long legs with a seductive curve to her waist. Immediately he remembered the day they had met. That was a month ago. A few days after this girl had moved into the apartment across the street. Then they too had met at the elevator, smiled at each other on duty, and stepped into the booth. She turned to him and seemed to want to say something. But the elevator jerked sharply, as if hiccuping, traveled a little, and finally stood up. The light in the cabin went out, something that had happened several times before, usually on those days when Maxim was in a hurry for an important meeting. His companion was frightened and began frantically pressing buttons. "Don't worry, it happens sometimes. Now we'll call the dispatcher." Maxim saw that she was afraid, so he decided to calm her down by talking. "Do you rent an apartment from Andre?" "I know him well. He's my best friend. We bought a place together in this complex. He prefers to live closer to the center, but we like it here. You're very welcome, really. Before you, the apartment was rented by a guy who threw loud parties every weekend." "Yes, I rent to Andrei Larionovich." "My name is Katya," she said quickly. It was the first time she dared to take the elevator. Why isn't anyone answering? "It's okay, Katya. We won't fall anywhere. Breathe deeply. You have a beautiful name. By the way, I'm Maxim. You should look for the good in everything. At least we finally got to know each other for real. You don't understand. I'm afraid of confined spaces. Excuse me, I'm embarrassed, but I could hug you. I'm afraid I'll faint if I don't." Without waiting for an answer, she hugged him firmly by the shoulders and pressed her face into his chest. Maxim reached out his hand to press the dispatcher's call button, but it wasn't needed. The lights flashed, the elevator pushed, and slowly crawled down. Only when the doors opened on the first floor did Katya lift her head and look at him. He looked at the blonde curls of her little upturned nose, felt her warmth through the scan of her summer dress, and her mischievous green eyes could pull anyone into a maelstrom of recklessness. Anyone but him. He'd had plenty of girlfriends before he'd met Veronica, but now he'd become the model groom who wouldn't even look at other women. Not to say that it came from moral qualities, rather Maxim was just completely concentrated on his work. Vladimir Alexandrovich, Veronica's uncle, was the owner of a large construction company, the key to the life he had long dreamed of. Thanks to him, Maxim made a great career, jumped several rungs, and took a high position. But it was better not to joke with this man. He well remembered how a year and a half ago, when his affair with Veronica had just begun, the old man decided to put him to the test. Gave him a pretty secretary who didn't know her job at all, but was great at twirling her ass. Flirted and made it clear in every way that she was not against moving the relationship to a more intimate direction. Maxim quickly understood everything and immediately asked the patrons to change the secretary. Vladimir Alexandrovich smiled slyly, nodded satisfied, and fulfilled his request a day later. After that incident, Maxim became overly suspicious and even thought that Katya could be another trap the old man had prepared for him. Although he flirted with her regularly, he always kept a certain distance, and even unobtrusively asked Andre where she came from. Buddy knew next to nothing. An ordinary student called on the ad all business. "What a beautiful car you have. I can't even imagine how much it cost you," remarked Katya as they came out of the driveway and approached the parking lot. "Do you want me to take you downtown? I'm in a bit of a hurry, so it'll be a breeze." The roof shifted and folded as if by magic, turning the car into a convertible. "No, she's not a spy. She's just a bitch who measures everything in money," he thought to himself as he opened the door in front of her, helping her into the car. "No, I'm writing my diploma," said Katya, when they stopped at a traffic light. "You said you graduated from the University of Economics. Do you want to help me?" The wide slit on her dress completely exposed her thigh. She noticed it, but didn't even think to correct it. "Do you have time for me? How about tonight? Come over and I'll make some lasagna." A sense of danger immediately reminded herself. A mocking smile curved his lips. He was about to politely decline. But then Katya continued. "Certainly, along with his girlfriend. I know you have a girlfriend. You were such a cute couple." The danger immediately receded. He liked Katya, and at night he often imagined sleeping with her. Now was a good opportunity to turn fantasy into reality. Tomorrow night, Veronica was going on a business trip to another city, which meant, "I can't tonight, I'm very busy," he pretended to think. "How about tomorrow? Tomorrow, I'll have time." After racing down the avenue, the black Jeep turned off at the park and soon parked in the parking lot near the apartment complex. It was late, a warm summer night over New York, and Andre looked up into the black sky, where he could make out the yellowish disk of the moon, the lone star. As he climbed the 12th floor, he glanced at the apartment where Maxim and Veronica had been living for months, but rang the doorbell across the hall. "So, beautiful, what are you going to give me?" He sank down on the couch, spreading his arms, throwing his leg over his leg. Maxim took the bait. "It was just as you said. I invited him to my place tonight, but he suggested we meet tomorrow." "Of course, because tomorrow Veronica will be in Street Petersburg. Have you forgotten what I warned you about? I'm not going to sleep with him." Katya sat down in the chair across from me. "If you haven't thought of anything, then you don't have to sleep with him. Here." He held out a vial of sleeping pills and a package of coffee. "Coffee for counting sheep, decaf. Let him get a good night's sleep. Veronica will be back on the 20:45 flight, so she'll be home around 10 o'clock. Now we'll go over the details." His conscience didn't bother him. Andre had never considered Maxim to be a true friend, more of a rival. Rivalry was good for both of them. It allowed them to be constantly in tune and achieve success. In recent years, Maxim has made a serious leap forward. Buddy not only got Veronica, whom they both had warm feelings for, but also had a job as a deputy general director of their company. Andre was not at all happy about it. He was smarter, more educated, more responsible Buddy. If Maxim had not started an affair with his boss's niece, he would never have climbed so high. Vladimir Alexandrovich wasn't too happy about the prospect of an impending wedding either. It seemed to him that Veronica should find a better match. The old man was cunning and was not going to sit idly by. A month ago, he suddenly summoned Andre to his spacious office with panoramic windows, located on the prestigious top floor of a business center. "You know that soon I'm going to retire the department. I'll let you in on a secret. I was planning on appointing you as deputy general manager. I think you're the best fit, but Veronica, you know who she wants to see in that position." "Of course." Andre smiled and spread his hands. "It's enough for me that you appreciate me. You're friends with Maxim, right? Tell me honestly. He's a decent man. I'm not talking about work. Would Veronica be happy with him?" It seemed to Andre at the time that it was worth supporting a buddy. It might come in handy in the future. He gave out a long, pithy characterization, but did not talk about the main thing. Maxim had always been fallacious to a woman, would never manage to be a model spouse. Without warning knock, a tall young girl entered the office, interrupting his mendacious outpouring. "Let's meet. This is Katya." The chief gestured to a chair, inviting her to sit down, and looked at Andrei again. "I know that you bought an apartment in the house where Maxim and Veronica live now, but you yourself live on Firskaya. Is it rented out now?" "No, I'm renting it alone. Not anymore." Vladimir Alexandrovich raised his hand, making it clear that he does not care about such trifles. "Tomorrow Katya will move there. Let's see if our boy passes another test. If he can stand it, then I'll believe that he's as good a man as you say. And if he doesn't—" There was a smile on his face, so cold and sarcastic it was frightening. "You will keep it a secret. Don't you dare tell him anything." His voice became unaccustomedly affectionate. "Andrei, I can trust you, can't I?" A month had passed since that conversation, but Maxim was too clever and did not show open interest in Katya. A couple of days ago, when he reported it to the chief, he only grunted and said that the test is time to end. Except that by this time, Andrei had very different plans. He talked to Katya and offered to continue the game, but under different rules. How much? When Andrei sounded in his proposal, she did not think long. "If you do everything as I say." It purposely paused and then whispered in her ear seductive figure. "What do you say, beautiful?" Of course, this girl agreed, without even giving herself time to think. After that, Andrei devised a simple plan that promised to work. He had no doubt that Maxim would fall for it. If all goes well, tomorrow Veronica would find her fiancé in bed with another woman, and then his time would come. Andrei will not only get a warm spot, but possibly the woman he's been dreaming of for a long time. Just in case, Maxim took a magic pill to boost his powers in bed. Time was short, and he really wanted to fuck Katya several times. Around 6 o'clock, he called the apartment across the street, pleased to note that under the robe the girl's brow was not peeping out. "Are you alone? What about your girlfriend?" The sly smile hinted that she understood everything, but wanted to appear naive modesty. "Sorry, she has a business trip. Let's just keep it on a first-name basis, okay?" He walked into the cozy living room, dipped his hand into his pocket, and pulled out a velvet box. "What is it?" She pretended to be very surprised, but immediately smiled happily when she found in the box a gold pendant on a chain. "Thank you, but I don't understand." "Just wanted to give you a gift without any backward thinking." Maxim smiled with his most charming smile. "Will you let me?" Turning Katya's back to him, he carefully removed her hair and fastened the lock on the chain. Deciding not to delay, Maxim immediately touched her neck with his lips, ran his hand up her thigh, and firmly pressed her buttocks. The girl did not even think of resisting. "You are all the same. It's enough to give a trinket. Any prude is already ready to give herself." Maxim could have had her right now, but he wanted to stretch the pleasure a bit. This might not be the last time he'd see her. If she pleased him, the relationship could continue. It's dangerous to have an affair with your neighbor, but who's stopping them from renting a love nest somewhere nearby? "I thought you wanted to help me with my diploma," she whispered, blushing a little. "Some other time, sunshine. Now I want a little something different, and please don't give me a hard time. It makes me feel like an old man." "Okay, don't you want to have dinner?" He just shook his head, devouring her with his eyes. "Then let's have some coffee." "It's too fast. I'm a little worried." While they weren't drinking coffee on the couch in the living room, Maxim unbuttoned the buttons on her robe. Katya took her time. She began to talk about her life, talking about her studies and plans, but it was beginning to irritate. Her voice made me sleepy. Her eyes closed by themselves. Maxim took another sip, deciding it was time to move on to dessert. "I'll be sure to hear your story, but right now we must hurry." He tugged his robe sharply. "You have no idea how long I've been dreaming about your firm ass." "You can keep dreaming." Her tone became mocking and unfriendly for some reason. She changed in an instant. Even her features were different. Her cold eyes looked with hatred and pity. Maxim could have been surprised by this, but he didn't have time. A moment later, he was already fast asleep. Sitting in the car, Andrei waited impatiently, watching the entrance to the parking lot. He stroked the steering wheel, examined the dashboard, and fidgeted on the seat, breaking into a cold sweat. I felt sick and disgusted. There was still time to call it off, but that would mean admitting cowardice to himself. At last a cab showed up, and Veronica stepped out. She was not a beauty, but there was a certain charm and character about her that was far more attractive than her pretty face. "Veronica," he called out to her, trying to put a hard edge on her voice. "I never thought I'd see you at a time like this. Do you like to take evening walks?" The wind blew her blonde, rather sparse hair. "The weather's not very nice today." "Took a trip to Peter on business." She looked anxiously at her phone. "I can't get through to Maxim. I thought he was picking me up at the airport. I think he must be asleep or working too hard. I myself sometimes pass out after a hard day. I sleep so hard that I can't wake up a cannon." He opened the door gallantly, and I let him in. "And I'm here on my own business. Your neighbor's moving out tomorrow. I need to see what she's done to my apartment. She seems like a nice girl." Veronica says, "Go back to Maxim's phone." Where had he gone? The hardest moment was about to come. Andrei held his breath as they took the elevator up to his floor. Veronica nodded goodbye and began rummaging through her bag, trying to find her keys. He pressed his finger into the bell button, mentally begging his accomplice to hurry too. Finally, the door opened. The light in the hallway flashed. The girl was wearing only a robe, under which flaunted a black lace underwear. Despite the excitement, Andrei got very excited. "Oh, and I thought the pizza had arrived," loudly said Katya. "I forgot that we agreed to meet with you. Sorry, let's meet tomorrow. I'm busy right now." When Veronica noticed that she turned around, the girl made frightened eyes and whispered something in Andrei's ear. He froze in place, pretending to be puzzled, frightened, even shocked. And then Veronica seemed to understand everything. "You have a visitor?" she asked. Her voice sounded authoritative. "Oh, are you so afraid of, little girl?" "Me?" She walked past Andrei, sharply pushed Katya aside, and went into the apartment. Bingo. My head was cracking so hard it was splitting apart. My mouth was dry, something buzzing around me in a measured way. Very quietly timid at first, and then stronger and stronger. A sharp voice began to break through the thick fog, but there was no way to make out the words. Maxim could barely make it out of his eyes. Where is he? Whose bed is this? Why was he naked? Don't you dare yell at me. Maxim said he broke up with you. It sounded like Katya's voice. How was I supposed to know he was just a horny liar? Yeah, Katya, the cute neighbor he wanted to fuck so badly. Who is she fighting with? Came on and for some reason got very excited when he saw his fiancée at the bedroom door. Veronica? Tried to focus his gaze, but it didn't work. Sweetheart, are you back already? I was just coming to meet you. I hate you. I hate you, you liar. How could you do this? Who else is here? Andrei. What's he doing here? Her friend tried to calm the women down, his face full of confusion. Veronica stopped screaming and burst into tears. Why is she crying? What happened? Andrei put his arm around her shoulders and led her out of the apartment. Don't you dare touch my fiancée, you jerk. Maxim wanted to shout, but the words were hard to get. Katya, too, had disappeared somewhere, as if she had vanished into thin air. He thought it was just a nightmare. He sighed, rolled over on his side, and fell back into a deep sleep, without even realizing that his life had already changed forever. The cafe was dark and cool. Soft music was playing, and there weren't many customers this morning. When the phone vibrated, reporting a bank card recharge, a slight smile slid across Katya's lips. "How generous you are. We'd agreed on a smaller amount," she said without any joy in her voice. "I can afford it." Andre shrugged. "Well done. You did all right. You deserved it. I think I'd better be going. Business, as you know, is not waiting. I hope this is the last time we meet. Aaron, you sorry. Maxim." I've never believed in women's friendship, but for a man to do such a low thing to his friend. "We're not friends, we're rivals." He was hurt by those words. Life is war? Okay. You either win, or you fall on your sword. If Maxim knew he'd fallen into my trap, he'd surely appreciate the subtle way I pulled it off. The main thing is that Vladimir Alexandrovich will appreciate it. I have no doubt that he will reward you generously. When Andrei got into his car and quickly rushed in the direction of the center, Katya walked down the street, stopped outside a dark gray crossover. The driver immediately opened the door in front of her, and he himself stayed outside so as not to disturb the conversation. "You were right. The brunette turned out to be a womanizer and wanted to sleep with me as soon as he had a free night. But keep in mind, Blondie's a lot more dangerous. He doesn't just care about his career, he's got his eye on Veronica too. It's a pity." Vladimir Alexandrovich smirked. I liked Andrei. He had the talent, but envy and greed never did good. How can one trust a man who makes a friend for his own selfish ends? I got him out of the wilderness at one time, but now I'm sending him back. He turned to her and smiled suddenly. "I have to go with my niece, to support and reassure her. And you rest for a week. Then we will have a new job." The girl bowed her head and got out of the car. Vladimir Alexandrovich trusted her completely, not even guessing in whose interests she was acting and what goals she was pursuing. Eliminating the two hapless buddies was only the first step. There's more to come. The real game has just begun.